Okay, all right, let's start the live stream. All right, well, welcome everybody to session 6 of the 2020 Citizen Assembly on COVID-19 recovery. It's so nice to have you here. Thank you as always for your service to the citizens of Oregon and your commitment to this assembly. This was meant to be the final session of the assembly, as you know, and you have told us, some of you very enthusiastically, that we really needed to extend it for another session. So almost all of you will be back next week, which is really exciting. Here's where you've been so far. You've done principles actually all the way up through now even. Oh, here's the new one, that's right. And you've been gathering information all the way up until now, and you're going to continue a little bit this time as well. You started to sort of think about recommendations last time. You're going to do a lot more of that this time, and then that's all you're doing on session 7. Last time, just to remind you, you got a legislative update from a state senator on what's happening in the special session. You reviewed some survey results from Oregon's Kitchen Table, revised your prioritized priorities that you've now revised again, rather. And you've chosen how to use these final 2 sessions. Now, as you know, because we called all of you, we took a poll at the end of last session, and it came out almost straight down the middle in terms of housing and education. And we thought, that doesn't necessarily reflect the will of the panel. So maybe we need to go back to the drawing board and try something else. So, so your prompting and how you voted sort of told us that we needed to split the panel and try to do both of these things, but still work somewhat individually, so that because a lot of you wanted to work individually on one or the other. So that's what we've done. Today, the panel will be split in 2, but don't worry, you'll be coming back together at the end of the day to hear what the other group has been working on, the other half has been working on. So I'm getting ahead of myself. You've just finalized core principles. You're about to hear from the final witnesses in each group. So half of you will be in education, half in housing. Then you'll be identifying potential recommendations. And then you'll be reporting those back to the whole panel. That's from both groups, so everybody can kind of hear where both the education side and the housing side are at. And then at the very end of the day, you're going to nominate or volunteer for a typo committee, which will have a meeting actually between now and next week to do a little bit of work on just identifying typos in the principles that you've already finished or very close to finished. That committee will also do work in the 7th session to help to do some typo stuff. So if there are typos that come out today, don't worry about them. There's a committee that's working on that. You'll get to review all the changes in session 7. I need to say just a few other things. As always, we got some great feedback from the researchers, thanks to your participation in their survey. Always appreciate that, and lots came out of it. Here's 3 things that were a particular concern that I wanted to address. The first one is that there was a concern from some folks that there was a fair amount of, there was some dead air, especially last time in the middle, and folks came back from small groups, and I think unfortunately I didn't get the timing quite right to tell everyone that we were actually taking some individual work time during that period. But that was intentional, actually. It went a little bit longer than we planned, but it was more or less intentional to have some time to sort of think about what you were working on at that time. Now I'm kind of forgetting. The principles, revising the principles, how to revise the principles. But yeah, we know there's a little bit of gum in the works sometimes with dealing with Zoom, and thanks for your grace on that. There was a concern from some folks about other panelists being, their cameras being off, or it seeming like some panelists were kind of distracted in previous sessions. And we know that not everybody is comfortable having their video on all the time, and that's okay. I just want to encourage you to be present as much as possible and to participate. Your fellow panelists are depending on you, and hope that you're there. So that's all I have to say about that. The third thing is some panelists, there was a concern among some panelists that the Oregon's Kitchen Table survey was not a representative sample of folks, that the folks who took the survey were not the same kind of representative sample that you are of the citizens of the state of Oregon. And we want to say, yeah, That's true. That's true. The survey was meant to be not a scientific sample, but sort of a reflection of people's experiences. A sort of, I think I described it the other day as an over-the-fence talk to your neighbor. But that you as the representative sample, as this panel, this microcosm of the state of Oregon, you have the responsibility to take whatever information from all these different sources, which may or may not be representative, and piece them together into your principles and recommendations, which is what you're doing. So that's responsibility, is exactly the reason why you're here, but appreciate you sort of noticing those kind of things. All right, let me just see really quick what else I need to say. Yeah, so the guiding question, just want to remind you, because you'll be coming back to this in the recommendations section. Your recommendations, as a reminder, are meant to be tied to the question and also whichever focus area you're working on. So you know the focus areas pretty well, but just a reminder, the first part of that question was, what do you see as relationships between the pandemic and inequalities in social and economic structures, et cetera? And just a note on recommendations, since we're moving today, again, from principles to recommendations, the principles were, what should we consider when making these decisions? Or why are these decisions important? The policy recommendations are the actual decisions themselves, the actual solutions, the nitty-gritty stuff. All right. And I think, right, here's the final product. Wanted to show that. I wanted to remind you just really fast to have pen and paper ready. You'll be taking notes of questions to ask these two experts in this next section, and then raise your hand in Q&A when you have a question, just as we've normally done. It's just this time you'll be split into two halves, 18 people in one group, 18 in the other, based on your preferences that you've talked to us about over the last weekend. So with that, let's go into the small groups. Moderators, we're going to have a little bit more time here. We're going to move the whole schedule back by 5 minutes through the next two sections. All right, thanks very much. See you in a bit. So 10 minutes still.